Thinking back to your childhood, Joe, a young guy, did you have role models or mentors that you looked up to? If so, how did that go?
So I I didn't really have any. I think my parents were kind of the people I modeled myself after for the early part of my life. So they, because they kind of made everything happen. I was in public school growing up, and you know, I I really respected them for. They didn't know anybody blind, so I was like the first person that they had ever met that was blind. So I think they were able to learn and adapt things, and I always kind of respected that.
Right.
And so, as far as a role model, I would say I didn't really have a role model until I got to college. And the reason I'll say that is because when I went to college, I didn't really know anyone blind. Like, there was no one
Sure.
blind in my high school. There was no one blind that I ever met anywhere. So, like, I always viewed things from sort of a perspective of, I can do anything. And then when I went to college, I met a friend of mine that I still talk to every day named Carlos, and he, you know, um, kind of showed me how to. I lived in the country, so a lot of things I didn't have access to, like busing. So like we didn't have city buses, we didn't have
Sure.
taxis, so a lot of that stuff was sort of new to me. I had to when I was a kid, I rode a lot of with my brother and sister. I had a four wheeler that I wrecked into my neighbor's truck. That's a long story, but anyway, got in trouble. So there was a lot of things I had to learn um, you know, when I went out on my own to I guess survive and get around and like
Yeah.
Carlos sort of took me under his wing and I kind of viewed him still today as like a role model because he was a person that he was probably the first person I knew that was blind, had a job, all the things that I was striving to do, and so I've always kind of modeled myself after him to try to do better for myself and it's been pretty fun. And I also I met a professor at Ball State who was visually impaired, and
Yeah.
um, she was also a role model for me as well because not that I was going to be a teacher, but
Sure.
learning how that she adapts things to do like grades assignments, with an aid, and then with Kurzweil at the time. Kurzweil was a scanning program that you would scan in, and it would rate. She would use the 3000, which would blow it up so she could see it.
Yeah.
Um, and just learning how she did her job was also, I think, beneficial. I would go to dinner with the two of them a lot back in the day, just just to like listen to them, talk and see what their day was like. And I think that's an important thing too. Like if you know someone blind or visually impaired, get with them and listen to how they go through their day. Like what
Yeah.
they do, like how they how you have to maybe get up a little early, get to work early, stay late because of bus scheduling and different things, and just kind of get that reality down of what life will be like.
Right. Joe, thinking back earlier to a question we talked about, you shared an experience with us when you were in an interview, and the lady asked you about how you would travel, and no one else in that interview was asked that question. Are there other experiences through interviews that you've had where you were asked, how would you, as a blind guy, do your job? Maybe they didn't say you as a blind guy, but they said, hey, how would you perform this task? Uh, and how did you answer that?
Yeah, so there was a job I interviewed for doing insurance as well, selling insurance, and they asked me, how do you input data? So I explained them how a screen reader works, and to be honest, when you go on an interview, have a laptop with you, have a few tools with you that you can show them because a lot of times if they're not, I mean, we're not even really 1% of the population. So in college, I was told one thing that kind of blew my mind. A lot of guys would tell me, "You're the first blind person I've ever met," and I think that's how I try to approach things. Like whenever you meet someone, I just automatically assume I'm the first blind person they've ever encountered, And
Right.
so there are going to be questions, there are going to be thoughts running through their mind because what's going to happen is they're going to picture themselves being blind, and how would they do the job? And they would just freeze. They were like, There's no way I could do this." But once you show them how a screen reader works and how, like even if it's as simple as an iPhone, you just pull out your
Yeah.
iPhone or your Android device and you should say, "Okay, when I touch, anything under my finger, it's going to read to you," for example, just basic 101 screen reading.
Sure.
That's going to show them, oh, there's technology that they can use that can read this. You don't want to be negative. Like I would never say like, well, it may not work with your program. Like get the
Sure.
job and then learn that, see how it goes. But I would just be prepared and try to show them as much as you can in the interview process, um, and that way they kind of have an idea of how you would operate.
That goes back to that extracurricular investment I talked about earlier, really knowing your thing, doing homework, and spending the weekend knowing your tech. Earlier, you shared with us, Joe, how you chose not to disclose your disability prior to an interview. What advice do you have for people in beginning their job search who are going to get the interview? Should they disclose? Why or why not?
I think it's a personal preference. Um, some people are fine with it, some people are not. I think it's kind of like we all have different mindsets on it. Um, I just have always viewed it as like they're gonna know as soon as they see me, but I don't want them to think or have preconceived like so. Just what I was mentioning about the screen reader. Um, like if they read that I'm blind on my resume, they're going to automatically assume they're going to go, well, how would he do this? How would she do that? So the thing that I would stress is that, from my opinion, is that
Yeah,
I would just look at it and go, I'm not. I'm going to let them actually talk to me in person about their
sure.
fears versus reading it on a paper or a computer screen and just making preconceived notions. So um, that's just kind of how I viewed it. But I see it both ways, truthfully. But I just have never felt the need to show it up front. Um, I've had questions like the Denver job that I took. I was really nervous. I'm like, maybe I should call them and tell them I'm blind. But I'm glad looking back, everything's kind of hindsight. Sometimes like I didn't
Yeah,
get the job, but I got the experience of, I got the growth of like, the hiring process isn't always fair, and I just have to keep my mind open to that. And you, you know, um, I got there early because of paratransit, and I saw, she asked me that question, like, this job has a lot of travel. Can you do that? Never asked that to anybody else that came through the door. So I
yeah.
mean, like, it kind of just showed me that, yeah, people are going to say things and things are going to happen, but I just, I don't know. I just feel, I mean, personally, me, I want to show you what I can do in person, not on paper. I can't, you know, I don't want to like fight that battle on a resume. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and if you ask any other blind person who's interviewed, they're all going to give you different answers, and I think it's really personal.
Yes.
You say so. Draw from that as you will, but it's always good to know what your options are. As we get towards the end here, Joe, talk with us about what does fun look like for you? Fun. What do you? Who's Joe when he's not working for the mighty APH during the week? What do you do? What are your hobbies? What are your interests?
Well, so I got married, so I had to kick a few interests to the curb. Like, I used to be really into speakers, like audio, high-end audio, and that had to kind of subside a little bit.
Sure.
But primarily, what I do on the when I'm not walking the dog and eating my wife's cooking, I love to play video games. So the technology in video games has really grown. Like I used to always play when I was a kid, and how I'd play back then is my mom or my brother or dad would read me the screen and I'd memorize it. And now, I mean, it's amazing. Like I can play those same games, but there's OCR in them, and like I'm able to tell how far a home run went, in a baseball game, or how what the stats of my running back were on a football game. It's amazing like how far we've grown on that. Like, yeah, I'm not playing the new games, but like playing those old games, but getting more information out of them is so much fun. So I do a lot of gaming. I'm a big sports fan, so pre-COVID, my wife and I would travel. I've been to like 19 baseball parks, so I'm a huge fan of going to games. That's kind of gotten harder as technology has grown because radio is on a delay. So like sometimes you're 30 seconds behind, which is very frustrating when you're at a ballpark live. So you'll hear everybody stand up and like cheer, and you're like, oh, I think they hit a home run, and then 30 seconds later they're all sitting down and you hear the home run call on the radio. So that's not as fun. But so I'm a big sports fan, and I like to travel. So I mean that's something that APH has taught me actually. I didn't know I like to travel, but going to like different conferences over the years, I got the chance to go to Germany with APH, and that showed me like I really like once COVID ends, like my wife and I want to go to Austria and Australia, like different places, and just real fast, just a quick story. We went to just spread like blindness, like the knowledge, like because I think when people see you out, it does help. We went to Portland, Maine, a few years ago, actually. Sorry, and it seems like months, but anyway, we went over to a little island. They have these like little coves that are on the ocean that you can like take a boat over and visit, and so we went over there with a GPS. My wife is totally blind as well,
Sure.
and she has a guide dog, and so we're walking along the ocean, and I'm with a cane, so I'm a little nervous because she's like about I would say probably 100 yards ahead of me. She's like, "You coming?" And I'm like, "Yeah. Once I get off this water, I'll be fine." Like we're on this little dock, and
Oh, right.
the dog is making sure she doesn't fall, into the water,
Yeah.
So, but we met these people. We found a candy store with the GPS, and we walk in, and these people go, you guys are like really fun to watch. And, we just made that little connection, and we started talking after we got our candy and went outside. It was just so fun. I really enjoy meeting people and seeing new things, so to speak. So it's, those are kind of the things I enjoy. And I really can't wait till, some of this stuff in the last year is behind us and we can get out and explore again.
Thank you. You and me both. I've actually been to, I think, that island in Portland, Maine about 20 years ago, and we had some of the best lobster bisque.
Ah, yes.
And it was really good. I couldn't tell you the name of that island, but the food.
Peaks Island. I just remembered.
That's right. That's
yes,
right.
yeah.
I've got just two more quick questions for you, Joe. Is there a life model you live by? Thinking of like a Twitter, sentence, or like a fortune cookie. Is there a life model you live by? Something you kind of wake up to every morning?
Tomorrow can always be better. And what I mean by that is, like if you're having a hard day, we all have hard days, but tomorrow can always be better. New technology could come out. I've been going to the Consumer Electronics Show virtually this year, and I've been reading about virtual reality, augmented reality, different things, and just seeing what they're doing with that. I just think it's like you mentioned this, Richard, earlier in the interview. It's the best time to be blind. Some of the role models I talked about earlier, they went to school when they didn't have all the technology we have now, and
right.
They literally had to record notes on a recorder, go back, listen to them. They had a scribe, they had a reader for books because they couldn't get them on digital format, and it's just amazing to see where we've come, and I'm really hopeful and excited to see where we go in the future.
Before I ask you this last question, I met Kathy Skivers, who is one of the founders of the American Council of the Blind, and she said back in the 1930s, 40s, she went to college using a slate and stylus. Just blown away. I'm like, wow, that's cool. That's dedication. That's grit. That's tenacity. That's everything. So
There's not, there's not a lot there's not enough respect given to those people that fought through
thank you.
that because yeah, it really is amazing when you think about it. I mean, it's unbelievable. I talked to my friend that went to college even in the 70s,
Yeah,
and they didn't have computers. They didn't have
no,
everything that we take for granted. As a blind person, they just didn't have it. I'll be honest. I mean, there's a lot of times like I was so we just ended the decade,
right.
and I was thinking back, um, and I was like, what did I have, in 2010, what didn't I have that I have now? And I mean, I wrote down a list of, I mean, it was amazing how many things I
Yeah,
had. Talking television, just Ira, the
yeah,
iPhone, all the apps that we gained.
true.
And
Yeah,
it's unbelievable when you think about. I mean, so I think you have to look at life in like little segments like that. When
you
if
do.
you look at it day to day or even sometimes year to year, you don't really see all the changes and that things can happen and make better. But I mean, my goodness, when you put it in retrospect like that, it really blows your mind. So
Indeed, and I have APH to thank for my college experience because back in 1995, I had a gym bag with all kinds of cassette tapes in my APH four-track tape recorder that got me through college
did you
for
have
all
the handy cassette
to
too?
record. What's that?
Was it the handy cassette too? Is it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. I loved it. It was as
Yes.
important as my iPhone is today. Hey,
Exactly.
Tina, what's one piece of a career advice you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, that's a good question. Um, I would say um, networking is key. So we talked about that. Don't be afraid to learn. And I know this is multiple things, but I think when in a career, it's it's hard because it is a wide open thing. So there's multiple facets to it. But I think if there's one thing I could say is be you. Like don't just be yourself. Don't try to be something different, and don't be afraid to grow as a person and into a role. So you may take a role and you may see it. Let's just say you see a job on Indeed come up or in the APH Career Center, and you say, I don't know if I'm qualified for that job, but I'm maybe 40% there.
Right.
Put your resume in. Like see where it goes because everybody can grow into a job, and trust me, I've seen job titles out there, Rich. I'm sure you have as well. There's a lot of things in them sometimes, and they can be a little bit overwhelming at points. But you know, they're looking for someone. They don't have the perfect person. That's not written for like a perfect person. There's always room to grow, and not everyone can always meet every qualification to a job listing. So go
Right.
do it, do the interview, and just 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 try your best. That's all anyone can do, and don't be discouraged if you're told no. Keep putting that resume in, keep putting that application in. But I would say just don't be afraid to grow.
Right. Thank you, Joe. Joe Hodge with American Printing House of the Blind. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming out and being interviewed with us today.
It's been fun. Thanks for having me, Richard, and nice meeting you as well.
My name is Richard Ruther. I'm with the APH Career Connect Center, and thank you for watching our video blog success series.